Bees. I'm your host, Dave Westcott. I've got with me co-host Scott the Beekeeper and special guest Sydney Stalcup.
Sydney.
Did I get that right?
No, Sydney.
Sydney.
I
knew it
Australia.
was Sydney. I knew it was Sydney. I was so focused on the last name that I went wrong on the first. I knew it was Sydney.
That's all right.
I said, "Good morning, Sydney."
You did.
I can't believe it.
That's
All right. Well, it's about progress, not perfection this morning. It's kind of like being in a beehive.
Very much so.
So you're keeping bees all the way down in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yep.
How did you get into beekeeping?
I've been obsessed with bees, I think, my entire life. My grandpa would take me to go pick up honey, and it was just on this guy's front porch, and he had all of his bees in his side yard. And one day he went out and opened up a hive and just stuck his arm in there, no suit, nothing. And the bees were just crawling all over him. And I think from that moment on, I've just been fascinated by them. So when I was 17, I was shadowing another beekeeper. And my parents figured this was just going to be a phase. But when I graduated high school, I got a hive for a graduation present. And it has just snowballed since then.
How many hives do you have now?
I did have a small apiary of about 4 hives a couple years ago, but I lost that to pesticide usage by surrounding farms. Okay. But I am now a volunteer at a cemetery that keeps bees, and we have about 15 hives right now.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. Why does the cemetery keep bees? That's an interesting.
It's not only a cemetery, but it's also an arboretum. Okay. And it is also a historic cemetery. We have Muhammad Ali and Colonel Sanders, and a lot of people who started a lot of the big bourbon companies. But it's a special place, and having things like beekeeping and historical events keeps people interested. It funds a lot of the historical society that runs a lot of it.
That's awesome. How close is that to the Muhammad Ali Museum?
Not far. That's just downtown, like 10 minutes away.
Like 10 minutes away. I've been to the Muhammad Ali Museum and the baseball Louisville Slugger Museum.
Yeah, nice. Not far at all.
And the Kentucky Derby.
That's awesome.
You got a lot going on in Louisville. I've never been. So
oh, yeah. It's calm now, but the Derby descended, so it's finally some peace. But I have.
Is that like a normal thing? Just go to the Derby?
It's turned into like it's pretty normal. It's become a 1 week. It was like 2 days, but now it's like a full week because Locals Day keeps getting pushed further and further back.
Oh, I've been to the Kentucky Derby. It's a lot of fun.
It is.
You only see the horse for just a small period of time, depending on where you're sitting. You don't get to watch the whole race. You spend most time watching it on the TV screen.
Mm-hmm. Just get a little glimpse of them. That's if you have a decent seat.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's a lot of fun. It's a blast. You go get a huge hat, right? Well, not me, but my wife. Get a huge hat. Lots of flowers on it. I could get a huge hat. That would be strange.
I made one with a beehive on it this year for party.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm.
Like where your head would be? Like, is that the hive? Or like
so that they have, instead of hats, a lot of people wear these headbands with all sorts of flowers and feathers and strange things on them. So it's a headband with, it looks like a skep on it, and then it has flowers and bees coming out of it. It is interesting looking.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So you
that is pretty cool.
You got kind of started with beekeeping kind of early, just really interested, and then you had your own apiary. How long have you been working with the cemetery? And can you kind of maybe tell our audience a little bit about how you got involved from your apiary to this one, and like how involved is that, your volunteer stuff with it?
So I started with a small backyard apiary We moved into an apartment building, so I needed somewhere to put my bees. So I put them on a small farm, which was wonderful. But there were a lot of huge commercial farming operations around them, which is where I'm assuming the pesticides came from. So after I lost my hives, I was trying to figure out what to do, and I looking for another place. And our beekeeping association does field trips, and they did a field trip to the cemetery. And I thought it was so cool. I had no clue there were bees there, so I reached out to their head beekeeper, and I was very persistent that saying, "Oh, I'd love to be a volunteer. I miss working with bees," and he invited me to join. And now I would do pop-ins here and there, and we decided to set a schedule. So 1 or 2 days a week, generally towards the end of the week, we meet up, and we now have a small bee team of about 4 people. So a couple times a week, and hive inspections, honey processing, talking to the community about bees.
And it's very rainy, and right now it hasn't really stayed. We've got a few days in the 70s, but by and large it's been like 55 to 60, cloudy, some rain. It's raining today. What's the weather like in Louisville? What's the beekeeping season like? Can you kind of tell our audience a little bit about beekeeping, maybe in a location they're not familiar with?
Yeah. So Louisville, Kentucky is a little bit complicated because we're not the North and we're not the South. And so our winters aren't nearly as cold as the Midwest. And our summer and our winters aren't as warm as they are in the South. It's hops around a lot, and we're in the Ohio River Valley, and it does rain quite a bit more than the surrounding areas. So I think like the biggest concern with beekeeping here is your winters, because you'll have a week where you are below freezing and your bees will be clustered, and then you'll have a day where it gets up to 70 degrees like within that week, and then they break cluster and they're confused and they're going out, and that can last for a few days, and then it drops back down to below freezing again. So you just kind of have to hope they know what they're doing and stay in their cluster, get back into it. But spring is we generally have great springs once it gets above freezing, and we know we're clear from snow, which is after Derby. Yep. The weather is completely unpredictable, but once Derby weekend is over, it's generally consistent. That's our rule for gardening.
Your earrings.
Thank you.
You've got the bee and the flower on them.
Yes. A friend I met through the internet in Colorado who's a beekeeper mailed them to me and made them.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, the online beekeeping community is amazing.
What channels do you subscribe to? What are some of your favorite online resources?
I'm not great with YouTube. I read a lot of books.
Okay.
That's where most of my resources come from.
Do you have any
I think probably what's been the most helpful for me is the Beekeeper's Problem Solver, because when I keep it with me when I go to the apiary, and if I see something, I can generally look it up in the book, and it'll give you the cause, list off symptoms and ways to solve it. So that's probably been the handiest thing, is just, having a guide with you.
Oh, that's cool.
That's good. Write that down, everybody. Beekeepers
Problem Solver.
I actually wrote that down.
We will put a link in the description. You can check that out. Well, what other resources do you like to use?
I do have some friends I talk to. At the cemetery, we do have another beekeeper who's kind of mentored our head beekeeper and gives us advice. His name's Rodolfo. Okay. And he's been beekeeping a long time and is just like a wealth of knowledge. So it's always fun to get a lesson from him or go to him whenever there's a problem.
What's the biggest problem you guys have solved with your hives?
Um, I don't feel like we've had a ton of problems. We have had we had the worst year of small hive beetles last year, and I'm not sure why it was so bad in our area, but a lot of other beekeepers had complained. Um, we ended up getting these special like roach traps. I think that's what they were. Instead of
Okay.
using the like oil traps for the hive beetles, I think they're called roach hotels. And we put those in the inner cover, and the bees can't get into them, but the beetles can. So we put some. I need to find the exact name of what we use to kill the beetles, but it's safe since the bees can't get inside the little hotels. And then they chase all the beetles in there and then cover them with propolis, and so it traps all of the beetles that are in there. If
Wow.
the
And
chemicals.
what happens if you would let those go untreated?
So when you have a large infestation of small hive beetles and your colony can't handle it, they will start laying eggs all throughout the wax, and it will turn into what they call a slime out, which because it just the moisture it's so gross and it smells so bad.
And will that kill the colony? Will it just ruin the honey? What are the consequences?
It'll ruin the honey. It'll make it hard for them to lay their eggs. But generally, if the small hive beetles are taking over, the colony has been weakened. So other pests will come in. You have varroa or wax moths. There will just become more issues as the colony gets weaker and can't keep up with the infestation.
Yeah.
When do you typically see this small hive beetle come after the hive? Is there a certain time of year where it's more prevalent?
Spring and summer, I would say.
Spring and summer?
I feel like it has a lot to do with how humid it is here.
It's not something we have to deal with. We are, I mean, like a little bit.
It's always humid here.
That's really good, though. We've done tons of calls, and this is the first one where we've talked about the small hive beetle. So I think that's really awesome for our listeners, and I think that's really, good. So the roach hotel is what we're putting into the hive, and the bees are helping to force them into the hive, and that's going to prevent some slime out, wax moths, weakening of the hives, bad smell, so on and so forth. That's a great thing to look out for. And I have to imagine that this is something that's prevalent through Kentucky, Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, North, South Carolina, because it's all really humid in all of those areas.
Mm-hmm. I know it's definitely a problem around here, but I never realized how big of a problem it could be until last summer.
Well, that's pretty cool. What other challenges have you faced?
I think realizing there are bad locations for bees. I had them originally when they were in my backyard. It was an urban area, and everyone was very skeptical of how well they would do there. But due to all my neighbors having all these gardens and fruit trees, it was wonderful. When I moved them out to a rural area, I had to be a lot more careful about knowing where there were water sources, other foraging options since they tend to stray from just being on the farm. And then also what was around me was my biggest downfall, because while it was an organic farm that was very bee friendly and they were wonderful, the surrounding farms were using a lot of pesticides and neonicotinoids.
And bees travel up to 5 miles from the hive.
Yep. So from now on, when I look at locations for apiaries, I get on like Google Earth and stalk around what's around me to see what I need to be aware of.
Good. Seeing your bees. check in a 5 mile radius, what else is around you? Did you ever run into either with your own apiary or down the cemetery, other beekeepers, other apiaries that you had issues with, like as far as they've contributed to some of your sickness or anything like that? Anything like that?
I don't think we've ever had an issue. We had one other beekeeper at the cemetery, but all of the hives seemed healthy and they seemed fine. I don't think that's an issue I've come across.
Cool. Well, that's good. It's kind of like the spring season now. You know, it's after the derby and such. So how often are you guys getting in your hives? What do the hives look like now? What's kind of the season for you guys at the cemetery?
It picks up our springs. They pick up pretty fast. It gets pretty things start moving really quickly. We now have honey supers on almost all of our hives. Probably do our first harvest first week of June. So with it being an arboretum, the tulip poplar, the black locust trees, just provide a ton of forage and a very strong honey flow. So we're checking on them about once a week to make sure they don't need more supers or more room in the brood box. And we're starting to take off honey supers and getting them prepared for harvest.
It seems kind of early for us. I mean, it would be very early for us, but that's really awesome. Have you done a lot of honey extracting?
Yes. Last year we had a great spring and we had an absolute surplus of honey. So it was a little overwhelming almost because every day we take care of the bees and then we had to go bottle and extract more. So it was a weekly thing.
Do you sell it? Do you give it away? What do you do?
Yeah, we sell it at the main office at the cemetery, or whenever we're having an event, we'll generally have some with us. We are currently sold out, at least for the next month.
Awesome.
That is cool. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What does the future look like? I mean, I know you're working at the cemetery, but it seems like you have a love and a passion for bees. Are you going to be running your own hives? Are you going to be, what do you think that looks like?
Well, I am about halfway through getting my master beekeeper certification.
Okay.
So I'm hoping I really want to teach people in a more official sense. And then this summer, I am moving to Nashville, Tennessee to start a beekeeping operation with my grandfather.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
We are hoping to do some hive hosting around the greater Nashville area and get more like northern Nashville, some of the surrounding cities like Gallatin. So I've talked about moving for a while. My grandpa retired, moved up to Nashville, and he called me and I would like to get into beekeeping. What do you think about this? So
Pretty cool.
Huh. So you guys are making the jump.
sorry, what did you say?
I was gonna say, how many hives? Do you know like what the hosting looks like? How far along in that are you guys? That's very interesting.
We're in the planning stage right now. I figure once I get down there, it'd be a little easier to get my head wrapped around it. I'm going to start with multiple hives in my yard. I've talked to some family who have spaces, so I can just get some hives placed, start talking to people. And so I think I'm going to be scouting locations this summer and getting to know the community, and then hopefully next year I'll have the bees and all the equipment ready to start putting that more into action with reaching out to farms, people with gardens, people who want bees but don't want to have to take care of them full time.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Well, maybe summer 2025 will get you back on to hear how that's going.
That'd be great.
Progress in your new bee journey.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that's exciting. That's a big change. And that's a big life
Yeah,
change too.
it is.
What does the cemetery think? Are they sad you're leaving?
I think so. They seem to be.
That's pretty cool. So this business that you guys are going to be in, that's so you guys are you guys are co-owners in this business then, or is that how that kind of works?
Yes, yeah, very much
Yeah,
so.
that's awesome. And what are some of the biggest challenges that you think you have to overcome in the business?
Um, I think breaking into a new area and just getting established, that's gonna be different. I've, been steadily growing here in Louisville, so jumping to someplace new and kind of starting over is gonna be a little bit of a challenge, but
Yeah,
I'm
that's
looking forward
true.
to it.
That's true. You know what I think that's one of the things that was my own experience in starting a bee company was just all the little costs.
Hmm.
It was all the little hidden costs like, hey, we need to feed bees, so now we need to make sugar water. Now we need to buy, a pallet of sugar.
Yep.
And now we need hot water for that to mix it so that we can break down the sugar and feed them. Or, hey, we're gonna plant blueberries for them to, hang out in. And now we need to put in a little sprinkler system. And it's all these little things that you don't anticipate, right? That that aren't budgeted, right? That are, you put together a budget and you say, okay, this is what we're going to spend and this is how we're going to put it together, and then there's a million little costs that aren't captured in the budget, that aren't captured in the startup. And what I found in the beginning was that like we do pollination, so that's one of the big things. Like we've got to get out there and run pollination contracts, and not all of our bees are pollinating.
Hmm.
Maybe 60%, 65% of our bees are pollinating. So that means 35% aren't doing anything. So that's not making money. And then you think, okay, now we've got to get honey sales and we've got to extract the honey. And but as like honey extraction isn't easy.
No.
It takes time, and it's got some wear to it. And then, what kind of honey extracting equipment do you need? And what kind of machine is that going to be? And how much is that going to cost? And then, how are we going to do that quickly and efficiently? And how are we going to get the honey out? And then we've got to sell. And there's all these little things that just continue, you know, I think just that come up, and that, when you've got, let's just say 15 hives and you're extracting honey, that's one thing. When you've got 100 hives and you're extracting honey, that's another thing. When you've got 500 hives, it's a monumental challenge. And so I think, like, as you grow and as you scale and as you know, and as your business develops, it's just, I think, really important to understand those costs. And that's something I wish I would have done better at as a bee company. I wish I would have been better at the costs and knowing what it was going to cost, and really talking to experts. And we kind of had a bee mentor guy who kind of helped us out in the beginning, who had his own bee hive farm of 500 hives or whatever. And he said, oh, I'm going to help you with a budget. And you know what? He lied. He never helped us with a budget. As soon as we bought the bees from him, he never helped us. He never produced that budget. He's a liar, in my opinion. Other people will say different things. If he's watching the show, you are what you are. But at the end of the day, like, that really, I think that was a big miss, was not getting a good budget for us. And that was something that we relied on somebody who said they were going to help us, and then they fell short. But I think that was a big deal, because there's so many little things that it's just like, I wish I would have been able to anticipate all of those little things that were coming up. And so anyways, that's just my thought on my own bee business and my own
Yeah.
journey in beekeeping was just cost, of things. And I think it's exciting to be in business. I love the bees. I like you. I love bees, and I love that they pollinate. I love the environmental impact that they have. I love that they make the world better. I love honey. It's exciting. My kids are little, 7 and 9 and 1, and so I love them being excited about bees. They tell people about bees. Could they be more involved in the bees? Probably so. But I love your journey. I love the path that you've been on. I love that it started from your, seeing your grandfather stick his arm in the. It was your grandfather, right? Stuck his arm in the
No,
hive.
it was a local beekeeper. My grandpa would take
Oh,
me over there and we'd just buy honey
okay.
from him.
Okay, Grandpa took you over and he stuck his arm in, and now you're actually doing a beekeeping business with Grandpa. So it's kind of making full circle.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Is this the same grandpa that you're going to do a business
No,
with? Okay.
different grandpas, but
Wow.
they,
Yeah,
That's still pretty cool, though.
yeah, there's love for the bees on all sides.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
yeah, that's pretty cool. Has your grandpa, has he done beekeeping before?
No, he's not. I've always been interested in them, and they lived down in the Florida Keys for a while, and they had a hive move in under their porch, and they tried getting rid of them, and the bees would come back. And I think they kind of, at first, they were a little freaked out about it, but they grew really fond of them.
Wow.
And moving
So
up here, I think,
they gained a love for bees too.
oh yeah, they liked their bees under their porch. I think they put a little sign out to like be careful of them, and
Oh, that's cool.
an actual beekeeper came and got them the final time.
That's nice.
As we kind of begin to wrap up a little bit, is there any like advice or parting words you would have for people who maybe they want to get into beekeeping or they're new? Is there any parting words or just advice, wisdom that you would give to them?
I would say read a lot of books. You can never learn too much. And also to make sure you take the time to slow down and observe what's going on with your bees and in their hive. You can learn so much from them just by occasionally taking a little time to slow down and observe all the life that can be happening on one tiny frame.
What's the biggest thing you've learned from them by doing that?
By doing that, I've noticed I'm a lot more present in my daily life from slowing down and observing all the small things going on with my bees. I've noticed I tend to take a little more time to observe everything going on in my life and around me, all the flowers blooming.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, I feel a lot more present.
That's a great takeaway.
Stop.
I love that.
Well,
Yes.
slow down. I think that's a good word to use.
Mm-hmm.
That's just beekeeping. Like, don't just rush through it.
Oh yeah.
It's easy to.
There's so many, like, I hate to use the word magical, but there's so many little magical moments when you're with them that it's so cool.
Cool.
That's pretty awesome.
That's awesome. This has been a fantastic show. Sydney, where can our audience follow you? Are you on Instagram, Facebook, anything like that?
So I'm on Instagram. My tag is Apiary Maven.
Okay.
And
Apiary Maven. There you go. I'm going to check it out, give you a follow. And I love that. And I'm Dave Westcott. You can follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, anywhere it's social. I'm hanging out, YouTube. If you like this show, give us a like, give us a share. Drop your comments in the comment box. We'll get back to you. Other than that, this was absolutely fantastic. Sydney, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to hang out with us and share your story. It's been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. And we will look forward to seeing y'all next week.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.